Hello, everyone, and welcome to the rest of the sermon, our weekly opportunity to dive deep into the Gospel of Matthew and review the past week's message. Here with me today, hadn't been here in a long time, our very own Sarah Fletcher.
It's been a long time, maybe not a good time.
Wait.
Maybe a good time? I don't know.
You had a kid in this time.
Okay, I did have a kid in that time, so that's fine.
That's why it's been so long since we had you.
Yep,
You were
that's a good
last
thing.
time you were on here. You were very pregnant, Sarah, and you said, "Don't call you very pregnant, Sarah."
That is right.
And then you went and had a baby,
Yep.
and you have two boys now,
And I'm
and you
very
came back
not
with a new job title.
Yes. Okay, I guess it's good.
Yeah, all kinds of things have happened in your life.
Yeah. It was not good for you guys.
It was
'cause I
not
wasn't
good for
here.
us because we got nothing done while you were on maternity leave, that's for sure. But you're back now and finally back with me on the rest of the sermon. I love it. So how's the newest addition of the family doing?
He's cute. He's squishy.
Mr. Ellis.
He's 4 months, and he's already cutting a tooth, which is terrifying.
Ooh.
Absolutely terrifying.
So you got a 4-year-old and a 4-month-old.
Yep.
Praying for you.
Pray for me. Pray for me as I cry.
Man, but I wish. I mean, okay, I don't wish going back to get a 4-month-old because I didn't like
No,
that. But I wish the 4-year-old. That was like one of my favorite age phases of my two boys. Is 4. Man, 4 was fun.
Yep. It's fun until you cut their peanut butter sandwich the wrong way. Then it is not fun.
If my boys got upset about peanut, I'd be like, I had something to say about it.
Oh
like,
my goodness.
No, 4 was a fun age. They want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
Like just last night, my oldest Peyton, who's about to be 17 in a few weeks, he come home and says, "Dad, I want to watch a movie with you." And I'm just going,
You shed a tear.
What?
Me?
You want to hang out with
Me?
me? Because we watch family movies every now and again, but Penny was gone at a thing, Parker had something else to do, and so Penny's like, "I want to watch a movie with you." I'm just like, this hasn't happened in years. And I find out, well, he's got a school assignment where he has to get rid of his phone for a week, so he can't have his phone. So he's like, "I got nothing better to do." So
You're my backup.
I was his backup plan, but I was so happy for an hour to watch a movie with him until he goes, "I got something else to go to."
You check the date. Is it April Fool's Day?
That's Sarah. It's going to happen to you. I
No.
hate to tell you.
Never.
Your kids are going to be driving. They're going to be in high school and
Nope.
barely watch a movie with you, as has happened in my life.
Nope. They're just gonna want a hug for the rest of their life. Just
You keep
a big hug.
You keep living in that lack of reality. You go. Well, we're glad that you're back. We're so excited about your growing family. And you know what else I'm excited about? Today is the 21st episode
Whoa.
of the rest of the sermon. Actually, I meant to say something last week when it was the 20th episode, but I didn't know it was the 20th episode at the time.
So we're celebrating 21.
21!
Woo!
Hey, 21 episodes, the rest of the sermon. So there you go. Hey, it's been exciting. We still got a long ways to go because we've got a long ways to go through Matthew, but it's been a fun journey so far. Matthew's been interesting. What do you think?
Yep. He's cool.
I just, yeah. Sure, Greg.
We
It's been
love
fantastic.
Matthew.
No,
He's my favorite character in The Chosen. Am I allowed to say that?
I think you're
Okay.
you're allowed
Yeah.
to
So
say
there
it.
you go.
Maybe The Chosen will be our sponsor.
Maybe they will be.
I think when you reach out to him and get on that.
Yep.
You're our new director of connections, so connect us with The
Okay.
Chosen.
Yeah, I don't think they will, but it's worth
It's
mentioning.
it's worth a try. Very good. Hey, we're going to go back and look at the passage from this past Sunday. We were in Matthew 11. We've been in that for a few weeks. We'll be wrapping that up this Sunday, but we had a message talking about how not to respond to Jesus. We looked at Matthew 11, verses 16 through 24, where we see a couple of instances where Jesus rebuking people for how they responded to him. He gives a little parable. And just as the really quick summary, we talked about how the responses he's referring to is people who have a hardened heart. And that was the ultimate answer for the sermon on Sunday, how not to respond to Jesus with a hardened heart. One basically refuses to respond, which I guess is a response in itself. The ones who's not stirred by the moving of the Lord, who's not willing to consider what he's doing. And he used those illustrations. The first one talks about, played the flute for you and you didn't dance. We sang a dirge or a funeral song and you did not mourn. He's saying you're like the children out in the marketplace. I love that picture. We don't have the Agora, the marketplace city center like they did in that day, but we can pretty easily have your kids. Do they play funeral and well, they probably don't play wedding. Well, Ellis doesn't do much anything yet. But
I mean, like, I think you have this very like sweet picture of these children playing in the marketplace. For me, it's like my kid has a song flute, and it's just the most annoying, screechy thing ever. I mean, he's having a great time. These kids are probably doing great, but man, I'm sure the parents in the marketplace are trying their best to ignore it.
Yeah, probably that's the same thing happened. It makes me think when I was a kid, my brother and a couple of my cousins would get together. My older cousin, Jacqueline, we would walk down to the school playground. We'd be at my grandparents' house in the school about a block and a half away. We go to the playground, and my cousin, she wanted to play games like Wedding or Tea or something like this, and I wanted to play Pirate Ship. That's what I wanted to play. That's every time I read this little passage, I remember out on the playground with my cousins when we were, 5, 6, 7 years, 8 years old, this kind of thing. And she wanted to play the girly game. I wanted to play the boy game. And I don't know what happened. I'm sure we compromised or something, but long time ago. But it's an interesting picture, right? So Jesus says it's like the children playing in the marketplace. One group wanted to do this game, the other group wanted to do that game, but neither, the rest of them didn't want to do it. He's basically saying, just like kids sometimes refuse to play, he's saying so many of you just made up your mind. You've just made up your mind about things, about who God is, who you expect the Messiah to be, right? There's that. I mean, so many people, there was a high expectation of the Messiah in that day, a very high expectation of the Messiah. Just like kind of nowadays you see this high expectation of the end times and all this stuff. But in that day, there was a lot of people who were going, man, the Messiah is coming. But they had made up their minds of who the Messiah was, what he was supposed to do. Like I said, the Messiah was supposed to come and relieve them from their earthly oppressors and this kind of thing. And so they just didn't have this picture. He was going to just walk perfectly the law, the rules they had created, and shun the people who don't live rightly. And so they couldn't accept the message. They had simply made up their minds. They didn't want to listen to John the Baptist when he came and sang "Repent." That kind of funeral song of sadness and repentance, and they could not grasp this idea of Jesus being the one to hang out with tax collectors and sinners. That wasn't in their conception of who the Messiah might be, and so they just refused to play. They refused to sing the song. They refused to listen. They made up their minds. That doesn't happen today now, does it at all?
No, never.
Is this where we tell stories about? No, right?
No.
we can tell stories on ourselves, maybe. I'm not sure I have one on mine. But, it is, I think one of the frustrating things I have experienced in ministry is, people they have made up their mind about a certain issue that is not scripturally based or scripturally even defensible, right? But they've made up their mind, and I have encountered this many times. I mean, I guess I will jump into an example that comes to mind. Here at our church at First Baptist, we know we've dealt with the issue of having women serve as deacons. That's something we prayed for. This before I became his pastor. Our deacons in our church prayed about it, studied it, and discussed it. And just to be real simple about it, I think just about every theological scholar out there says there are a couple of possible interpretations of how women can serve in the role of deacon. And some people say, I think it's this interpretation, and some people think it's that interpretation. And that's fine if you pray through an issue and go, this is where I fall down on it. But I have noticed over the years, we've had people come and get so shook up over it. Right? I had somebody join one time who didn't know that, and they left the church so mad. And I try to sit down and go, hey, can we just talk about it? Let's consider the issue from a biblical standpoint first. If you still follow that interpretation in the end, that's fine. But have you really considered? Have you even opened your mind to what might be a biblical issue? A difficult interpretation issue. And so often it's no. I'm like, it's put the fingers in the ear. I'm not going to listen. I'm not going to consider. I know what's right. It's kind of like the lady who got mad at me years ago when I said that the wise men, one, we didn't even know there were three of them, and they weren't there
Oh no.
in the stable. They weren't there in the manger. They
What
came
do you
later
mean?
on. They weren't there. They don't belong in your nativity scene. I'm so sorry.
You destroyed her.
I pretty much destroyed Christmas for her.
Goodness,
you
you're
know,
the Grinch.
it probably didn't happen in December. The wise men weren't really there at the birth. And what are you talking about? Well, just so.
I hate to ruin it for you, but
Yeah, exactly. I do harp on, we need to have a good understanding of Scripture, because obviously if they had been willing to really understand what the Messiah was really about, they would have been realizing here's what Jesus came to do. But they had made up their minds. They weren't going to listen to John. They weren't going to listen to Jesus. Here's how much they made up their minds. When Jesus is referring to the criticism that he and John had received, he says, people are saying about John, oh, he has a demon about him. But the criticism Jesus has received, and I'm assuming he's basing this on things people have actually said to him or about him. We know that they said these things. This is verse 19. It says, the Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, look at him, a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. That's actually a reference to Deuteronomy chapter 21. It's actually a reference back to there. And this tells you what they were saying was not just some kind of mean name calling. There's a veiled threat behind it. In Deuteronomy 21, it lays out what you do with a rebellious child, with a rebellious or stubborn son. So if Ellis or Emmett
okay.
get rebellious, or my two boys get rebellious, it tells us this in Deuteronomy 21. And in fact, it's verse 20, and they shall say to the elders of the city, this our son is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. And so that phrase is talking about the rebellious son. Now, do you want to know what the next verse says? That is what.
Scared.
Yeah, you should be a little scared, because it basically says that they can take out that son and stone him.
Yeah, okay. That's where I figured it was going. I figured it was going for
So tell your
stoning.
boys.
No.
Okay. I'm not jumping into the Old Testament law right now, explaining why that verse is there in the first place. Okay, I'm just saying there was a Mosaic law talking about the son who was so rebellious. That was the step they would take then to be able to punish him, even to the point of, yes, stoning him. I'm sorry, and that's a topic for a different day, okay? But I'm saying to call him a glutton and a drunkard was the phrase that you would use to try to find him as the stubborn and rebellious son. And so when they're saying this of Jesus, they're not just saying, hey, they're not really going, you are a glutton and a drunkard. They're not really going after those two specific sins. They're using the phrase to harken back to the Old Testament law, where they're basically trying to say, he's the rebellious son. You know what we should do with him? We should stone him. We should kill him.
And ouch on their end, because they're treating him like, a little s son, but he's God's son, which they don't know.
He's not the rebellious son.
He is not the rebellious son. He's God's son.
Exactly.
So it's a compliment that he's a friend of tax collectors and sinners.
But they don't get that.
But they don't get it.
They're so hard-hearted. They're so close-minded to what the Messiah is there to do. They're using a language not just to criticize him and insult him. They're trying to this is maybe one of the first markers in the Gospel of Matthew where there's this threat of death, of severe violence against Jesus. They're trying to sow this discord and get this movement happening of, you know what we should do with this guy? You know what we should do with him? We should kill him. This is where it's starting right here. The grumbles are going. This is who he is, not realizing that right there is the Son. Jesus says something I didn't get to talk about it Sunday, but after he uses that quote about the glutton and drunkard, he gives a simple statement, yet wisdom is justified by her deeds. So after this parable about the children playing, so like you're the children in the marketplace who don't want to sing the song, don't want to play the game, you don't want to listen, you're threatening me, you're criticizing me, yet wisdom is justified by her deeds. I'm going to put you on the spot, Sarah. What do you think that verse means?
Man, you are putting me on the spot.
I am. I'm right on the spot.
I think it's kind of like could go either way. So like it's almost saying like at this point they don't have wisdom. Does that make sense? So like she's just wisdom is justified by the deeds of what you do. So, the deeds, are they saying that he is, we're talking little s here, little s son, and that he is a glutton and a drunkard. And so it's almost like showing you don't have wisdom. Or the flip side of it, if they actually did accept John, which we know they didn't, would that have shown their actual wisdom?
Right. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's going to reveal itself. It's, the fruit is going to be evident at one point, whether it's good or bad fruit, good or bad wisdom. Wisdom is justified by her deeds. Their wisdom or lack thereof. Yes. I mean, they have wisdom. It's their wisdom. It's human wisdom. It's poor wisdom.
Yep.
Their wisdom is being shown by, hey, what we're going to do is we want to kill them. We want violence. We're that close to what God might be doing here. We're going to kill this person over this. Wisdom is justified by her deeds. They can't see the fact that the tax collector and the sinner need the help. And it's offending them so greatly. This change to what they've always known is offending them so greatly that their deed is going to be a deed of violence. Christ, who has the ultimate wisdom, what is his wisdom going to result in? Deeds of changed lives, and absolutely changed lives, and of course then to the cross and salvation. And so, when we are think we've got it figured out, I think this is a kind of a comment here by Jesus saying, considering what your wisdom is producing, what deeds does your wisdom result in? Does your wisdom result in compassion for the person in need? Does it result in obedience to Christ? Does it result in ongoing growth for the Lord? Or does your wisdom result in criticism and complaint and threat and lack of compassion? And what you could say, you could kind of evaluate your wisdom based on the deeds it's producing out in your life.
And then if it's just foolishness.
Yeah, then it becomes, it's not wisdom at all, it is a foolishness. What
foolish.
you thought was the right thing, right? It's then it turns out to be foolishness. It's saying, hey, I mean, it's kind of like just look at your life. Are you a happy person? Are you, not just a happy person, but I mean, just look at what's being produced. Is there a joy there? Is there a service level contentment? Is there all these things? Or is there just the constant bitterness and down and complaint and all this stuff? And going, okay, well, maybe look at what you bought into. Maybe you need to have the preacher come along and challenge you on a Bible verse that you thought that you knew, or something about God that you just assumed to be true. Wait a second, maybe I need to look and stop just saying I've made up my mind. I mean, that's true for a lot of people. That's true for the sinner and the saint. We need to know this for sure.
This reminds me of a question that my son asked me in the car the other day. We were driving along and he said, Mom, do I know everything? And I said, well, Sunshine, no, you don't. You don't know everything. Guess what? Mommy doesn't even know everything. But I said, you know who does know everything? And he said, who? And I said, well, God. And he's like, well, Pastor Mark talked about that. And I'm like, well, yeah, okay. So at least he's clicking into something. But
he's starting to pay attention.
There's so many people, even beyond a 4-year-old, that think that they know everything. They know everything about Jesus. They know everything about the Bible.
Yeah, there are plenty of adults out there who think they know
yes.
As the older I get, the more how much I don't know of myself. That's true. Sometimes I still act like a 4-year-old, though, sadly. Let's talk about the next few verses, verses 20 through 24, where he denounces the cities. It says, then he began to denounce the cities where most of his mighty works had been done because they did not repent. I mean, right there. Absolutely.
And not the good woe.
Yeah.
Bad woe.
Bad woe. Woe to you, Chorazin. Woe to you, Bethsaida. And, so he talks about these cities. So he's talking about cities in and around Galilee, northern Galilee, kind of what's known as the Gospel Triangle. And I've actually been to these places or the ruins of these places a few times. There's really not much to see there. I mean, just the little ruins of old villages and Market Square and that kind of stuff. But you can kind of see where Jesus did his ministry. Can I tell you a story real fast that has nothing to do with our lesson today, but it's worth our time?
Absolutely.
Sure, why not?
Yes, why not?
My last trip to Israel, we were seeing the ruins of Bethsaida, the house of. Do you remember?
Fish.
Fish, you're right. The Bethsaida
lots of
Bates
fish.
house, Bethsaida, the house of fishing. We Google searched that right before we came on today. I couldn't remember if it was House of
we
Bread or
totally
House of
knew
something
it.
else. No, we didn't. I was close. Anyway, we were in Bethsaida seeing. We think Bethsaida. It's debated which location was Bethsaida. It doesn't matter. We were there at the ruins and seeing this ancient city. You could see where the things was in. The other teaching pastor went with me, Dr. Jim Cece. He likes to do a little lesson at this town because in Bethsaida, and the ruins we're seeing is one of the clear examples of city gates, where city gates would have been. And obviously in the Bible, talk about, meet at the city gates, the elders were at the city gates. Even, in Proverbs 31, talks about her husband, the godly wife, her husband praises her at the city gates in front of the elders. And so he actually likes to stand at the city gates and he talks about it and go through an example. He actually asked people to bless men to bless their wives there at this place. And so he's like, hey, this is a place where this would have happened. A godly wife, her husband would have praised her at the city gates. And so let's do that. So he does this like little 15-minute lesson. And then he encourages guys to stand up and bless their wives and to say something encouraging.
I'm scared where this is going.
Oh, man. Well, so we were there. And first of all, this was, late June in Israel. It was hot, okay? Midday, sun blaring, no shade at this particular stop. We're dying out there. It's so hot. And he already has been talking for, a good 15 minutes. And then when he says, I want, husband stand up there. Of course, okay. Sometimes husbands act under peer pressure. Do you ever know this about your husband? He does sometimes.
I am going to use my right to not answer that question.
And so, we had a group of 50 of us, so there were, almost 25 couples on the trip, not quite. But so one husband stood up and started saying something about his wife, and then another. And then I'm kind of looking around. I'm like, all these guys, I could tell they're feeling a little bit of pressure to stand up.
Wait, so they have to say it in front of everybody?
Oh, yeah.
So it's like you're taking turns.
You're taking turns.
That's not fair.
No, you're taking turns. You go to the city gates and you say these good things about your wife.
No, it's hot.
It's
Just
hot.
Everybody get up there and say something at once.
And so... And so we're going, and so at this point, we've been standing there for 45 minutes at least, right? It's been going. And I haven't gone yet, and I'm sitting there having this internal debate of going, should I say something? Because a lot of the other husbands are saying something. Some of them really got to saying some stuff.
Poetry.
And all the poetry, I'm telling you, they laid it on thick. I said, what should I do here? Like, is Penny expecting me to bless her greatly in front of the whole group of the city gates? I chose not to. Okay,
Oh, no.
I chose not. Hold on. Hold
Okay.
on. And so I chose not to. So we gave everybody a chance who wanted to go. And there were probably 3 or 4 couples that the husband didn't say anything, including myself. So we're walking back to the bus, and so we got on the bus. The air conditioning, got a bottle of water, cool enough. And I leaned over Penny and I said, "Dear," I said, "I hope you don't mind." I said, "I didn't know whether I should say something, but I just realized you were really hot, and I just decided that." The greatest way I could probably bless you is by not talking so we could get back to the air-conditioned bus fast as possible. And she looked at me and she goes, "I love you so much."
Okay, so you won
I
husband
won.
points
She's like,
from this
that's
one.
exactly the right way to bless me.
Yes.
She was hoping I did not stand up there and say something. And I didn't. So I won that one. Yay for me. Good husband. I blessed her by staying silent at the city gates.
You could have got up there and been like, you know what, Penny, you're as cool of a blessing as it would be to get on the air-conditioned bus. Let's go.
Really corny joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did
We're
do
leaving
that yeah. Anyway, that's my Bethsaida story. Anyway, but how Jesus is talking about that, he talks about, Bethsaida, Chorazin, Capernaum, and he keeps saying, it's going to be, you guys are in trouble. Woe to you, right? He mentions a few other cities. He says, if the mighty works have been done in you in Tyre and Sidon, those were Phoenician towns, not too far away, not settled by Israelites. And they were towns looked down upon, like those are the scum of the earth, right? These are the people who deserve judgment, right? That's how in that day, the people of Bethsaida, and Chorazin and all these people who are, good, upstanding Jewish Israelites, would have looked upon these other towns of like, oh man, those are just bad people. If anybody in this earth is deserving eternal judgment, it's them. Or Sodom. Oh, you remember Sodom way back then? Oh, they were. I mean, we even have it in the Bible of just how terrible, how vile, how sinful, and the judgment God brought down upon them. They're the ones that deserve it. And Jesus says, it's going to be worse for you. It's going to be worse for you, Capernaum, Bethsaida, Chorazin, where I've been doing all this ministry, where I've been saying all these things. It's worse for you than it is for those places. Now, I'm going to hit you. I'm going to put you on the spot again. You ready?
Okay, I was like, please don't hit me.
No, I'm going to hit you with a spot.
A spot, okay.
Because there's a tough theological interpretive question here.
No.
And you can say you don't know. It's
Okay.
all right.
Okay.
When he says it's going to be worse for you, these cities, because these other places would have repented if they'd seen what I'd done, heard what I'd said. It's going to be worse for you. What is he talking about? Is he talking about degrees of different types of eternal punishment, or do you think it's something else that's going on? How would you interpret this? It's going to be worse for you. That's kind of it's a tough question. The spotlight has just hit you right now. What do you think?
Ouch.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's going to be like every single person that lives in that city. You're going to have
yeah.
a worse eternity. I don't think at all like that. But just maybe just more. There's more responsibility on the people that are there because they interacted with Christ as he was here physically on earth, and so. The fact that they just, even more ignored him. I mean, but that doesn't mean, I think, that in God's eyes, when someone nowadays hears the word of Christ and says no to it,
right.
I think that's still very equal in his eyes. But,
Yeah.
That they interacted with physical Christ Jesus here on earth and
Right.
they still denied him. That's a
Yeah.
little rough,
Yeah. It's a tough thing. First of all, you said something I want to affirm. This is not saying that everybody in these cities is doomed to hell and eternal punishment. There became believers from these places, right? He's not talking that just because you live in this city, you're going to be eternally punished. What I think, some people take this and misapply what Jesus is after. Some people use this and they build out this system of the degrees of punishment, the levels of hell, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That is a subject for a different day. And I mean, there is an argument to be made about how eternal punishment adores versus the eternal heaven and reward is played out. There are other passages to consider, but I don't think that Jesus is saying this to try to deepen the discussion or get into the issue of, well, what level of hell are you going to be in? Because that's not what he's after. And I think some people try to use this passage, he's talking, who's it going to be worse for? And, I think what he's pointing at is going, you're going to realize you had it right in front of your face. You're going to realize, for the people of Tyre and Sidon, who they had also the ability to, through God's revelation and his way, to be able to go, there's a Savior and seek that out. But it was a lot harder for them. The evidence was not near as present before them. But here in these cities, they had significant time to literally witness it. And, without excuse. And I think he's saying to them, says, man, on that day of judgment, it's going to hit hard. It is going to hit so hard for you because you're going to realize just how evident this was before you. It's so much more difficult for other people to seek out the Messiah and have a saving faith. You had it right there. It's kind of like just that gut punch of the, when you have something happen that it's your fault, like it's just totally your fault, totally your doing. Like you had just a total bonehead move. So you ignored something. You caused your own problem. You caused your own downfall. Something you did to yourself. Man, that just hurts. He's saying, take that times 1,000. It's like, you're sitting there looking at other cities thinking they deserve judgment and all these terrible people. Man, how it's going to be for you on that day when you realized you had the Messiah standing in your midst. You had the Messiah standing in your midst this whole time. And you chose to deny. And you also said something I think is very true. That's still true today. It's still true for those who have, there are those who have just abundant examples of Christ before them, have easy access to the gospel and to the word, who could come to church on any Sunday without any fear of persecution or anything, and go, no, but I really don't want to play that game. I don't want to. I made my mind up. And man, how hard that's going to hit on the day when you realize that you had that opportunity right before you. That's what Jesus is focusing on. I was trying to, don't be so secure in yourself and your own wisdom and your own thinking. Maybe you need to pay attention to something else. It's a woe to you. Yeah.
But the bad woe.
The bad woe. The bad woe. Well, next week we're going to talk about a good woe. He's not going to say the word woe, but it's going to be like, whoa.
Okay.
That's awesome. Okay. That's what we're going to see. We're going to talk, whoa.
We're going from whoa to whoa.
That's what's happening.
Yeah,
that's what's happening. Yeah, that's exactly the reaction I'm expecting the congregation Sunday. They're just going to stop in the middle of it and go, whoa. That's amazing. No, we are going to talk about a familiar passage, but we're going to talk about a good response, the way we should be responding to Jesus as we finish out chapter 11. And maybe I'll come up with another fun story of how I didn't bless my wife. We'll see. I don't know. We're excited. But I hope people come Sunday and see about the next thing. Well, I appreciate you joining me, Sarah. It's been too long since having you on the rest of the sermon, so I'm glad you're back and you're going to become a regular guest again because this is so much fun.
Yeah.
So much fun.
Yeah.
And you know what we get to do now?
Do we get to say, this is Sarah Fletcher and I'm signing off?
That sounded terrible. No, what we get to do now is you and the rest of the staff get to take me to lunch for my birthday celebration.
Yes.
A week and a half late.
Pizza.
Yeah, I'm very excited right now.
Woohoo.
Very excited.
I am hungry.
I
hope the mic has not been picking up my stomach sounds this whole time.
It's a really sensitive mic. If you've been hearing that, friends, I'm sorry.
I am so sorry.
Anyway, well, that's what's going on around here. We're glad that you joined us. I hope that today's been a blessing to you as you've learned something more as we continue to walk through the Gospel of Matthew. Share this out with others. Give us a like. Again, share it. Let others know what's going on. And, of course, be with us on Sunday for the next message. But thanks, as always, for joining me for the rest of the sermon.